While many printers have shifted their focus, Freeport Press has remained committed to the art of print. For companies that need a printing partner for magazines, look no further than Freeport Press. We offer the capabilities a customer would expect from a national printer while offering the level of customer service clients expect from a family-owned business. Freeport Press. We do print, and we do it well.
FreeportPress.com.
If you're committing it to print, you made those words expensive. Those words are expensive and they have a different weight. They have a physical weight. You committed to them. And that was part of what we wanted to do. And if you're going to do a print anything, embrace the form. And that's what we did.
The tech industry is easy to dislike, admire, ridicule, resent, need, all of the above. This podcast doesn't exist without tech. I know that. But there's also no enshittification without tech. Coined by writer Cory Doctorow, that word has entered the general lexicon with a speed and ubiquity that might make someone like Shakespeare envious, if he knew what was going on, which of course he doesn't. All of this to introduce InFormation, a magazine about tech, but more importantly, a magazine about what tech is doing to us. The people behind it work in the industry and so understand it, which makes them perhaps dislike it even more. 25 years ago, InFormation was like the spy magazine of the dot-com boom, a bit of a kick in the pants to an industry and a group of people who saw themselves in utopian, if not messianic terms. And while they might still see themselves that way, spoiler alert, they most certainly do, a lot of people in the world do not, and so InFormation is back. It is reformed and is being published again with the same attitude. That is, it continues to kick ass but with more feeling, because Silicon Valley is no longer a place but a mindset. Techbros are a thing, and a wealthy thing at that. And well, there's a general feeling that the world has been thoroughly colonized and completely enshittified. My name is Arjun Basu. This introduction was written on Google Docs, and this is The Full Bleed. I just want to hop right into this. So you had this 25-year absence with InFormation where nothing happened, apparently. Let's go back to what life was like 25 years ago. Describe the primordial soup of InFormation 25 years ago.
Late 90s, San Francisco, Silicon Valley. I was working in tech. I was working at a then small company called Apple that was about to go out of business. I was an engineer, and I'd been working in Silicon Valley in tech at that point for 5-6 years. Tech had been this thing where only a small number of people cared about it. It felt like we were working off in the colonies, outside of awareness of national, international focus. Something started changing around the time that the internet became a consumer medium. All of a sudden, you had this thing that came to be known a little bit later as the dot-com boom. What you saw from the previous era of computing, which was all about, let's make computers easier to use because people aren't using them enough and there's so much to be done here and wouldn't that be great? That was the era of the personal computer, shifting into, there's this thing called the internet. And that rapidly turned into two different related phenomena. One is the emergence of these companies that sounded like young upstarts. They said very funny, crazy things. Oh, everything's going to change. You're going to buy everything online and it will be shipped to you. You're going to use the web browser to talk to people. Everyone is going to be online. We're going to have a world of everyone talking to everyone. Everyone will be creating content. And all these things that sounded at the time completely fanciful and absurd. There was a lot of hype around the value of these companies. They sounded like these propositions that made no sense. You look at the guys who founded them, little nerdy guys doing things that sounded a little idealistic and maybe a little naive. Everybody got obsessed with the internet. Everybody felt like, wow, this really was something, world revolution. It was going to save everybody. And so the hype became absolutely overwhelming. What had been, we were off in the colonies. We were making personal computers, whatever we were doing. And suddenly this became an international phenomena. And both the absurdity of it, the claims that people were making, you could laugh at it. It was dying to be mocked and it was dying to be taken down. And at the same time, if you actually took it seriously, this is some kind of dystopian stuff. if you understood what they were really talking about.
And it was all couched in a very utopian vision. It was about possibility and human connection. And if you went behind the curtain, it was about something else.
That's right. We were going to have the global village and everything would be wonderful. And it's not like you had people at that point in time correctly predicting or plotting out just how big this would be and what it would really mean to have these visions realized. But the visions were realized over a period of time.
So you and a bunch of people got together and said, let's create this thing. Who were the players? Were they all from tech, or were they journalists, or where were they from?
Most of them were from tech. Most of them were people that I had worked with or met through, hey, we're doing this publication. Do you want to be involved? Most of them worked in and around tech. Key people on this were, and by the way, these were also the key people on the 25-year later issue, although the crew changed up a bit. It was me, my idea, and I got the band together. It was Alex Lash, who was our executive editor, still is. Brian Maggi, who took the lead on humor. Paulina Borsuk, Oren Tversky. These are people, some of whom were writing about tech and had been for a while. Most of them were actually working in tech. They were effectively covering or making fun of. So it was like participant observer.
And who else was covering tech then? Was Wired around yet? Was there anything dedicated to the industry?
Yes, actually, that's worth talking about. So Wired got its start in 1993, I believe. They were one of the very early publications to look at tech and take it like tech is culture. There were a lot of publications covering tech. You could go into one of the many stores that sold magazines and you would see multiple shelves of tech magazines. And what these products were was like, what is the latest product you can buy? What are their specs? How can you use it? What kind of printer do you want to buy? Top 10 printers, top 10 monitors, whatever it might be. There were a lot of tech publications. Wired and a couple of publications earlier than that, something called Mondo 2000, now not as well remembered, started approaching tech from the point of view, this is a cultural phenomenon, this is going to change society. And they got into that. It was still very much a booster, techno-optimist kind of thing, but Wired had something different. So were there publications covering tech? Absolutely.
So you did 2 issues, things changed, you didn't do anything. And now here's issue 3, 25 years later. So why now?
We'd like to think we're the world's first quarterly magazine. What changed? Let me rewind to why we didn't do a 3rd issue at the time. What happened was we published a 2nd issue, and it was very well received. It sold well. At that time, you still had a pretty robust magazine economy. We had already locked in our distribution from the 1st issue, got things moving much more easily. But not long after that, we're going down this track of, do we want to make this a commercial entity? Do we want to really try this as an ongoing concern and try and turn it into a business, or is this going to be a sideline sort of thing? We talked to a lot of people, but what happened was 9/11 really changed the focus of the culture. And it wasn't just 9/11. Almost concurrent with that was the dot-com bubble burst. And all of a sudden, the thinking was the internet's not relevant. Actually, this whole thing was just all bullshit, all of it. And I would hear people saying at that point in time, the internet going forward is just a business thing. It's only for businesses. People are not going to use it. All of that stuff was just a myth. And that was conventional wisdom at the time. Then 9/11 happened. So the types of things we're covering, the world that we had been covering really changed dramatically. And the shift in the culture's concerns also changed.
So the why now question.
From that period forward, what ended up happening was, I think everybody knows this just as a general societal observation, all those dreams of the dot-com era were realized. Some of them even larger than were even dreamed back then. And it came to dominate our lives by degree by degree. At the end of 2022, ChatGPT went live. And what we saw starting at that moment, and it's continuing until now, The hype around AI started to feel, resemble what I remembered from when the internet was introduced as a consumer media, right? So all of a sudden it starts sounding very much the same. It's people making crazy optimistic pronouncements coupled with, if you actually take this seriously, it's a problem, infinite money getting thrown into the ecosystem, and just an incredible amount of absurdity. So much of it is genuinely funny. We see a lot more critical coverage now. The trigger was like a friend of mine, Alex Lash. He called me one night. He's like, so what do you think? Issue 3, special singularity issue. And I'm like, you serious? He's like, yeah, I'm serious. But I thought about that, and not long after that, I quit my job at Google, and I'm like, this is actually a good idea. The time is now.
Your editorial, you'll say something that I think that warms the cockles of my heart. The way to experience information is in print, because print just smells better, which I agree, and weighs more. It's time for something different because AI reduces your attention span to microseconds. Put your phone down and touch paper. That's great. I've often said to people, even when I was editing magazines, that magazines need to be printier. They panicked when the internet happened, mostly because the ad dollars went somewhere else. But they tried to emulate the internet when they should have leaned.
Part of this whole thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah. They should have leaned into their printiness. You know, having said that, InFormation might be the printiest magazine that we've come across. It's remarkably self-aware of its nature.
Oh, I love the word printiness. I'm going to use that from now on. I will credit you to it. It's very printy. Those of us who worked on it, building applications, websites, infrastructure all day long, we're living and breathing that stuff. And if you're going to do a print anything, embrace the form. And that's what we did.
Even at the colophon on the last page is basically how we did it and what we did it with. And so you have all the typography, you have what you just said, after 15 years deep in pixels and product design returning to print. It's just all there. You even have a vinyl record in here, one of those plastic things that you can play. You've used every trick in the book. It's large and it feels great. The parody, let's just say, it's almost a parody. I'm not sure if it's a humor magazine, just a straight humor magazine. It's definitely commentary, but I mean, even the ads are parodies.
The ads, we have one real ad in the magazine, which is on the back cover, an ad for Espolon tequila. Inside the magazine, we have a fair number of ads which are fake. We have a fake conference program and a fake corporate insert and a fake advertorial section with educational programs. So a lot of that is embrace the form of the print magazine, leverage that to get the message you want to get across. Trying to characterize this magazine, a lot of it is about the humor, but it's dark.
Of course, there's an era. Of course, it's dark. That's why this magazine exists. That's what the humor is in its darkness. It reminded me most of Spy magazine.
Yep.
And so you have that Graydon Carter testimonial blurb on the website, and that just makes the perfect sense. But InFormation is more subtle because it is talking about an industry where everything is possible. What you're saying could be a joke, but it could also be deadly serious.
And you never really know.
Exactly.
You genuinely never know. I'm immersed in this stuff, and I don't know. One of the authors is working at one of the world's top AI labs. He doesn't know. It's interesting.
Wait a second. So he doesn't know what?
Where's this going to go?
He doesn't know if he's working on a doomsday machine or if he's working on something to file your taxes?
If I talk to the people who I know who are closest to the reactor core of the AI world, and these are the people who are working not on using AI, but on creating AI, they all sound vaguely manic right now. They sound a little bit crazy. They say things that are not characteristic of their personalities before these roles, but they also vacillate between, is this thing going to achieve super intelligence, or isn't it? Or is it going to go this way? Or are we going to see all jobs eliminated? We're going to see more jobs created? I really don't know. We're just pushing it forward because It's incredibly compelling. They've got some of the symptoms of actual mania. There's a thing called pressure of speech, where you feel compelled to talk and to get words out at a high velocity. And it's just a very interesting phenomenon. So I think they're compelled, they're working on it. They're not merely working on it, they're obsessed with it, because it's hard not to be obsessed with it given the subject matter. And yet they don't know where it's really heading. I'm not sure filing your taxes we're already past that notionally.
Yeah, we passed that a long time ago. I read a newsletter from an editor at a magazine that's been on the show just this morning, and she said they are now getting inundated. And it was like the first cycle for them where they're getting inundated with AI slop of submissions. And I know literary agents, anyone who has to read an email for a living, basically, or even not for a living, the amount of slop out there is truly discouraging.
No, it's actually everywhere. You're writing with a machine to be consumed by a machine.
Yeah, and that's why when the people who extol the virtues of AI the loudest, one, they're annoying people, but two, they don't understand like how much it's already impacted the normal person.
That's something I've got a question about. I think it has impacted certain professions more than others. People who are dealing with words, large volume, I think absolutely. People who are dealing with art, I think so. But there are other fields where it's still not really penetrated.
It hasn't. And I think AI, the whole industry would be really smart if they talked about the really good things it's doing, like in medicine, for example, or even science. But they don't, because they keep pushing the language models, because that's where they think they'll make the money. And I want to get back to the magazine.
Yeah, one of the things that ties into the magazine is like you have a world where, given AI, given the situation you're now talking about, the slop, words have never been so cheap. Yeah, I mean that in a literal sense, right?
And that's what makes the real words, inversely, so valuable.
Yeah, if you're committing it to print, you made those words expensive. Those words are expensive, and they have a different weight. They have a physical weight. You committed to them. And that was part of what we wanted to do.
We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Jeremy Leslie at MagCulture. We're proud to support The Full Bleed because we love magazines too. Visit magculture.com and see why print is far from over. It's just getting started. Read the journal for interviews and reviews, listen to our podcasts, visit our shop in London and online, and come to our live events in London and New York. We love magazines. Subscribe to our newsletter for weekly updates, all at magculture.com.
Print is Dead is made possible by the support of the Society of Publication Designers. The SPD powers the future of visual storytelling, setting the standard for editorial excellence and shaping the future of visual culture. For more information, visit spd.org.
That leads me to the question of, how do I put this? You have this whole thing of the evolution of the tech bro in here, which is hilarious. But like you said, there's some really dark things. And I had to read some of the things twice before I realized they were both true and false at the same time. As the editor, what are you looking for in a story? You and your team are essentially insiders who have managed to step back, who can see the forest for the trees, let's just say.
Well, I'm glad to hear you think that. You know, when we would have our weekly calls, it was interesting how the core group, when we would talk, everyone had a really good sense of this is something that makes sense in the magazine and this is something that doesn't. Even though it might be hard to explain. Like, there were a handful of pieces that we printed that could have been in The Economist. Most of them really couldn't have been, or would be highly unlikely to have landed in other publications. And some of that had to do with looking askance at what's going on from a very well-informed point of view. There were people who wrote there who would never have written for a mainline publication. Not that publication wouldn't have wanted them to write. It's just they wouldn't have known to contact them or anything else. So well-informed, looking at it skeptically, and having a bit of humor about it. That magazine that you're looking at there, if that were strictly like, let's be skeptical and critique Silicon Valley. I don't know how far magazine you would have gotten. And it's funny, I asked at the outset, I was like, having fun just like everyone was in 2023. I'm like, describe the editorial mission of the magazine. And I said, okay, hey, ChatGPT, go write me a table of contents and try to characterize what the tone of the thing is. And it complied. And it was just fascinating how it completely complied with the request. And yet I looked at that table of contents and like, no one would read anything on this list.
Right.
Nothing.
Right.
I'm not even sure I can exactly explain to you, like, what is the center of gravity for this publication. Broadly speaking, we were trying to do, what is it that tech is doing to us? Just broadly speaking. And that may sound like a lot of things, but we had a particular way of doing it.
Just the cover lines, my favorite one, and when I saw it, I just laughed so hard. It was "My Toyota ratted me out." And it is so funny because, yeah, I can actually see that happening. To choose Toyota of all of the car companies to do that, like every line of that is funny. Maybe it's me. Because it's just 4 lines down and we have silicon golem. So you get the idea of it, but you're also like, okay, that's actually true. How do I buy this at self-checkout? I mean, the self-awareness, it's constant, and it really does succeed on that level. People were getting it 25 years ago. Do you think they get it differently now?
I think it's really different now. I think 25 years ago, the appeal of this type of content was much more narrow, or the people who were reading about it, they were reading about something that they weren't living. It might be fascinating and interesting, but they were reading about a place and a set of ideas that they weren't necessarily living and breathing. And now everybody's on their screens. Everybody is influenced by this. Everybody is hearing and probably directly using AI right now, which is one of the strangest things about it, right? You have this technology that's rapidly developing, potentially dangerous, transforming humanity. Compare it to nuclear weapons. People weren't personally experiencing nuclear weapons. Right when they were being built, it was being done secretly by the government. And now these are consumer products. You can use it immediately. I think this is something that is easier for people to absorb right now, or more relatable. Relatable is a weird word, but I think everybody is living this now, one way or another.
Yeah, I think 25 years ago, the pool of readers was niche, and now it's potentially everyone.
I don't know if the attitude is for everyone. I don't think it is, but the topics are.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like a weird funhouse mirror of LinkedIn.
Yeah, it's another thing that's totally mockable. Not that I don't use it.
Yeah. Let's talk about the design. We haven't really talked about it because we're going back to my printy thing. It has everything that a magazine has ever had in it. So talk about the art direction and how you work with the art director.
A lot of what made this 25-year later issue what it is the design. And the guy who was our creative director, someone named Josh Kleinert, he, like everybody else, he's working in tech. He works at an enterprise software company right now. But if you rewind far enough, he was a magazine art director, a magazine designer. And so he has a love for this. He lived through those years. And he hadn't touched these tools in ages. But we went into it wanting to do, if we're going to embrace print, let's embrace print. Let's do things that can really only be done in print. Some of it is, okay, you can use print as a alternate delivery mechanism for words. Just the facts, man. It's just text on like plain paper. Okay, it's no better or worse than a website. Although some people like the fact you're reading on paper. Great. Okay, but we didn't want to do that. We wanted to embrace the form of a magazine. And we wanted to do a magazine that reminds you of why you loved magazines when back in the day. They may not know that there's a ton of indie magazines that would probably make them feel very similar, but the sentiment was well taken. We wanted to embrace print. And some of the things that we were talking about, like binding in the flexi disc, that was like, okay, the minute that idea came to mind, I'm like, all right, we have to do that. And it added significantly to the production costs, by the way.
I can only imagine.
There's one thing that comes to mind in there. Facing pages have a upside up and upside down page. You turn it around. You can't do that kind of thing online. It's just fun. And we have marginalia, right? Just really strange stuff. And also every little detail of it that on the design side was thought out and deliberate, right? We weren't working on a hard deadline, so we had this luxury, right? And the team was like, if we're going to do this, let's go all in. And Josh and his team just killed it. The editorial direction of it came out of that Josh said, all right, instead of structuring it like an old school magazine where you would have like front of the book, like quick hits, and they have feature well, back of the book, let's do something different, because this is something approaching not literally evergreen content, but it's not something where you're giving someone news. The front of the book doesn't mean anything. And we had a lot of ideas going on. How do you make this more digestible? He proposed, let's divide up the book into sections that are theme-centered. And we did. I found that super helpful. I came up with the themes and even the names. And when he designed them, his group designed them, each of those sections has a little bit of its own visual identity. They have their own display font. They have their own highlight color. All of those things, printy.
And that comes through for magazine nerds or people who notice these things like myself. You start to notice what you're talking about, all of these little details that I'm sure were the result of a lot of discussion or approvals or whatever. They all end up here.
You want to hear something funny about the design? It nearly killed me. All of the copy was done. Everything's done. The headlines, the pull quote, everything. And it was all being laid out, designed, illustrated. And we're headed into the final stretch. And Josh comes in, we spend a weekend looking at this stuff, and we actually want to redo the design. Are you serious? I'm like, you're going to do a redesign now? He said, no, we're just going to tweak it. We're going to up-level it a little bit. We want to make the pacing better. And I'm like, shoot me now. Just shoot me now. But guess what? It happened quickly, and it was a huge upgrade. So, as always, he was right on these matters. And that's where we landed.
Yeah, the editor-art director relationship is fraught at the best of times. And if you don't kill each other and are happy with the final product, then of course you've won.
I have to say, I had 3 objectives here, which were, let's all enjoy working on it because no one's getting paid. Let's all feel good about the end product. And let's put something out there that people enjoy and get people talking. The third one was discretional, but I have to say, this team got along exceptionally well. We didn't have the throat choke kind of moments. My own stress about, oh my God, late in the game, you're going to do a redesign was just waiting. You have to ship. Which this product.
So the cover, is that hell? Or is is it a camera?
Okay. So the cover, facially it's Hal, and yes. But I'm going to point out a couple things because everything else in there, there's details piled on details. It looks like you've got it in front of you there. Yep. So first off, you'll notice that there are these little sparkles in the middle of Hal, which are the iconography that has emerged to indicate, oh, look at my application with its cool AI feature. The other thing about the cover in terms of what is it is go flip the page and look at the inside front cover. So what you'll see there, so you have Hal on the front cover with the little sparkles. You open the inside front cover and you see it's a little pulled out. It's the same image of that eye, but it's on the back of an iPhone. And there's a little story there, right? You do it to yourself. We all do it to ourselves.
Of course.
Yeah. The cover was done by someone named Troy Dunham. He had been in magazine illustration for a long time, and then he'd gone into user interface design. That rendition, when we all saw it, we're like, that's it. That's the cover.
Surely you've heard the word enshittification.
I have.
Which is one of those words that is perfect. And when Cory Doctorow came up with it, it felt inevitable. And also it was a perfect word. And you figured, like, why hadn't we figured this out before? But of course, tech being tech, it entered the mainstream lexicon so quickly, almost as quickly as AI entered all of our life. It really was that fast. And now, of course, he has a book out. Are you upset you didn't come up with that word?
Yeah, I love that word. Upset I didn't come up with it. I don't know. It's certainly in keeping with the spirit of the magazine.
I think the magazine is basically about that subject, but just not as serious as Cory writes.
I mean, it is a wonderful word, and it applies to a lot of things, right? You can be like, anything I don't like is being enshittified, but it does have a relevance right now. I do like that word. I'll admit to it.
So do we have to wait 25 years for issue 4?
Just a week ago, we got the whole team together in San Francisco. People flew in, and we're like, what's next? There was this question, is it going to be another 25 years? I don't think that would go well. But if you look at issue 1, there was a 2-year gap, and then 25 years. And then issue 2, maybe there's a 2-year gap, tops. There will be another issue maybe next year. Yeah. We don't want to rush anything here. Doesn't outdo this one, it wasn't worth doing.
This one obviously hit, it resonated because you've just reprinted.
Yeah. We reprinted it. We sold out. We also sold out, at least online, of the reprint, which was great. But retail sales are different, and we could talk all about magazine sales and distribution.
Yeah, we could. Distribution sucks.
It does.
And it has always sucked, and now it sucks even more for different reasons.
That is exactly right. We did want to get visibility in the retail world, cast a wide net. You never know where it's going to lead. And it does add some air of, and this is going to sound weird, legitimacy.
Absolutely.
We printed all of it without knowing whether we would get any. It was completely speculative. And we're rolling the dice. We think we've got a good product. We think we're going to somehow move these magazines. And we did, but no, you can't talk to a distributor or a retailer about, will you sell this product, unless they've got the actual printed copy in hand. Hey, I got a PDF. Not good enough. They need to feel the thing.
Yeah. No, there's the chicken and an egg. They can answer that question.
Yep.
I'm happy to see that it still works and that it's found its audience, and hopefully it'll find a bigger audience as you move forward. I think it's a great publication.
Yeah, thank you for that. I would love to reach a larger audience with this. I think we learned a little bit about how to get to people, but there's no equation. It's luck.
A lot of luck, and more people need to admit that all success comes with a bunch of luck.
That's certainly true in the tech business as much as it is here.
It's true in every business and endeavor, I think. We end our interviews usually by asking our guests about their 3 favorite magazines or media, so it can be anything. So what are yours?
There's a magazine published out of Barcelona in both Spanish and English. It's an indie magazine called La Nueva Carne. And it is a side project of a design firm. The content is super interesting. A lot of it is in the domain of information with a different angle. The design caliber, the cover, the quality of the content is great. And I've definitely enjoyed that. Another one that I've enjoyed, which is a different domain, and partially just because of the format, is this thing called County Highway, which is the newspaper that they put out, I believe, once every month, 2 months. Just having something done in the form of a newspaper broadsheet with the type of writing that they do and the sort of oddball content that they have, really refreshing. I'm going to leave it at 2 for now on that one.
Thank you for this. This has been great.
Thanks for having me on.
This has been The Full Bleed, a podcast about the future of magazines and the magazines of the future, and a production of Magazium LLC. This episode was produced by Patrick Mitchell. The theme music was composed and played by Jason Camelot. If you'd like to comment on this show, send an email to hello@magazium.co or visit our website at magazium.co, where you can read transcripts of all of our interviews from all of our podcasts, along with portfolios, archival photos, links, and more. You can also tell us what the mags you miss. Just fill out the form on the website. Once a month, we'll select the name of a lucky person, and they could win some fine swag. Speaking of which, we have a swag shop. My name is Arjun Basu. Thanks for listening.